Hello and welcome to Odoo Live. My name is Noel, Community Manager here at Odoo San Francisco, and thank you once again for joining us. Today I'm joined by Justine, one of our Customer Success Managers, to talk about expenses in Odoo and managing your online expenses. Welcome, Justine.
Thank you all at your online expense management. Today I'm going to show you how to basically manage your expenses online on the employee and the employer side. We're going to be today, for the purpose of this webinar, we're going to be a traveling consultant agency. So consulting, going to your customers, obviously having to expense airplane tickets, travel by car, any food, etc. So let's jump in already in our database.
Go for it.
So here you are in the Odoo database with a few apps. What's really important to know about this expense app and what's the value to it is basically that everything is going to be integrated and paperless in one app with a dashboard for your employees and for yourself. So no need to have spreadsheets. It's going to be easy for you to track how much money your employees spend on the different trips they're taking, to budget around that, and for the employees to keep track exactly on the limit as well. So here, the dashboard, I've installed a few apps. Obviously, we have many more on our app store. But we have the sales app, the accounting one, the employees as well as the expenses one, obviously, because this is the main purpose of this webinar today. Quick look at our settings app. That's where I'm going to manage what users can do and see. I am, for the purpose of this webinar, the manager of the team, of the consultants, and I'm able to set different access rights for myself and for my team. So as a manager, I am going to have like the title of and the access right of a manager as well when it comes to expenses. My employee will not have any manager access right for expenses, which means they will not be able to approve their own expenses. Of course, that makes sense. In terms of like the employees, I've created a user for the consultant. That means that the consultant themselves will be able to access the Odoo dashboard and input their own expenses. If you don't create a user for your employees, that's fine. You will be able to input expenses for themselves, but that would be really like a loss of time and can be quite overwhelming. I created as well different employees here. My consultant, who is like the person I manage and I will review the expenses, have their own profile. And I've decided that myself, I will be the person responsible to approve the expenses. Let's go back to our main dashboard now. And let's get into the expenses. In terms of the configuration, the expense app is very straightforward. The first step would be to configure your expense product. So here, let's say that I'm in the carrying the hat of like the accountant of the company or the manager, and I'm going to decide and predefine the different expense product that my employees will be able to input. Let's take, for example, the expense product food. I've already created this expense product myself, but I'm going to hit the button edit and show you the different option. So the food here is going to be a consumable rather than a service. I'm setting the cost to 0. That means when the employee actually is going to input the new expense they created in the dashboard, the cost is going to show up as 0, but they can edit that. The unit of measure, it's actually just like to have any like unit of measure doesn't really matter here, but I'm going to show you why it could matter otherwise. And an internal reference of whatever like you decide to have. In terms of the invoicing policy, that will be relevant later on to show you how to re-invoice your customers for the expenses carried by your own employees. You have different options. You can invoice based on the order quantities, the quantities that were like set predefined, or by the quantities that actually were delivered. So you could decide that you have a budget of like $90 per day for food, or actually anything that was bought by the employee will be able to be re-invoiced. In terms of the re-invoice policy, again, at cost or sales price, it will be relevant later when I show you how to input an expense in a sales order for one of your customer. I'm going to hit save, and I want to show you quickly some settings here. And you will notice I'm staying in my expense app, so I don't have to leave the app, but I will have the settings of all the other apps. First, I want to show you in terms of like the sales, the different unit of measures. So I am here in my sales settings. I hit unit of measure, and I'm going to have all these options. So what does that mean? Here it's already saved, but it means that when I'm going to have an expense product that is, for example, a car travel, I'm able to actually set it as miles and set a cost of 0.30 cents per mile spent in the car. So that's what I'm going to be, my employee is going to expense. And this time it's not a cost of 0, so they will not have the choice to input a different price for this. Going back to the settings very quickly too, just want to show you the accounting settings and the tax. Again, I'm not leaving my expense app. I'm staying in the settings, and I can have access to the settings of any apps. When I go to advanced option, I'm showing that it's already included in the price, and I save it. Again, if I go back to the expenses product, here I do not have to add any vendor tax. So my employee is going to be able to invoice a price that already has the taxes included because I've activated that settings. So here's for our basic configuration. You can add any product as a manager, but of course your employee will not be able to add products on the fly. So let's go and access our expense dashboard. So here I'm going to see my expenses. Just a quick look on the different filters that you have. You can undo this and you will have access to all the expenses. The expenses of yourself, but also of your team. So here my consultant is here with like 2 expenses. You will have access to the status as well. Using the filters, you can filter by expenses that you have to report yet and submit to your managers, as well as expenses that were refused or approved, as well as like my whole team or my own expenses as myself, the manager. So let's go ahead and create our first expense. I'm going to say that I flew to see one of my customers. It was a flight that was costing $350 of units. No need to adjust that unit. I am the employee and I paid for this myself. So I'm selecting that box. If I had used a company card and I wanted to record that as an expense for the company, but I do not need to be reimbursed, I will hit the company box. The date was, for example, like a week ago. The account is already set as an account that's under the expenses account. That will be for the accounting side of the company. The employee, here I am myself, putting an expense for myself, or I can do it for my own employee. So let's say that I decide that I'm inputting this expense for my employee that's a consultant, and I'm gonna hit it and click save. So here you are in your first expense. I want to show you quickly how to use Studio. That's an app that allows you to customize anything on the go. And I could add that, for example, as a manager, I would find it important to know the priority of different expenses set on different criteria depending on your company. And I can drag this field and add it as a different priorities. I can rename. And I just click close to save the expense. Give it a few seconds. And here it appears. So we have our first expense. I've not attached a document here on purpose. I'm the consultant. I've created that expense. And I'm going to go back and as the manager, see what, so we have first 2 options in terms submitting your expenses. So you can submit expenses one by one. So I'm going back here and I can create the report to submit the expense. I can also click and select different expenses and submit the report. And that would be like submitting one only report. So for example, if you have one trip and you have like different set of expenses with flights, food, at the end you want to select them all and create a report. Here I'm just going to unselect and submit and create the report and submit it to my manager. So what happens in terms of the manager? So this is an expense created for my consultant. I receive an activity in my dashboard. I am the manager. I'm the one responsible for reviewing, approving that expense. And I'm going to have this expense actually showing up and having a reminder. It also shows on the chatter. So everything is paperless, but also visible for anybody in the company. And your employee will be able to see at which stage of the expense process we are at, as well as the manager. Let's go back, and I'm a manager, and I have to see today, it's the last day of the month or like a few days before the payroll, and let's see which expenses have to be approved. And I'm seeing here my expense for the consultant with different like information, obviously, who submitted it, when it was, and I can click and have all the details. I'm seeing that an attachment is missing, and I actually want a ticket receipt for this. And I'm able to log a note and tell my consultant, please attach picture of the receipt. I'm logging this note, and what it means is that this note is going to go into the consultant dashboard as well as the email address and notifying them the need this action to be taken. They will then be able to like edit and add a document. You also have, as a manager, are able to refuse an expense or reset to draft if some information needs to be done. I am, let's say that now like the consultant has actually attached the picture, and I can go and approve it. In terms of my expense report, the expenses will still be there, like under my different expenses, but now they will not be under to report, but under to be paid. But again, let's go back quickly and see how it appears under my team expenses. The next action you want to take is to pay those expenses and to post them on your accounting, on the accounting side, if you have, again, those access rights in the settings. So here I'm back to that expense, and I'm going to post the journal entry in one click. No need for me, again, to leave my my expense app and to go to the accounting app. That's automatic. I can go to the to pay section of the dashboard, or I can just remain here and decide I'm gonna do a bank transfer for this expense on this date. You can also add a memo, decide to pay less on different next stages, and I validate. So now the expense is being paid, and you can also see that the stages has moved to paid. So here you can really follow, and your employee will also be able to track the stage of their different expenses, which is important for them. You have the ability to send a message, that's also an email to different followers, or to schedule an activity, for example, and say, I want to email my consultant that it's being approved. Let's say that I want to do it at the end of the month. And that will appear on the day. So it's a future activity, but on the day of the last day of the month, it will appear as an activity to be done today with a little one on the clock here. Another thing I want to quickly show you as well is how to submit expenses by email. So as an employee, you might be traveling and you want to submit your expense, like you take a picture of your receipt and you want the expenses right away. You can create an email alias for all the expenses of your company. It's easy. The consultant will just need to like put on the subject of the email the expense product, and that will appear on the expense dashboard, and they can edit it from there. In terms of the re-invoicing policy, I've mentioned to you earlier that you can have different ways to re-expense actually to your customers at delivered quantities and at cost, for example. So here, let's move on to our sales app. And I'm going to create, the consultant, let's say, and I'm going to invoice my customer for a future service. I'm going to add a product that's, for example, consulting service at a cost of like $300. Just a quick note here, you can actually create an expensible product on the go if needed by just ticking this box. So here I have my SO, my sales order. I'm saving it. And this is the reference of the sales order, and I'm confirming the sales order. What will happen now? So this is the sales order. I'm going to share it with the client. And let's say that after the trip, I've not invoiced yet the customer, by the way. After the trip, I will have to create a new expense. This time I was eating some food. This is the total of the food I was eating in like a few days. I also can set a priority. This is like low priority, like medium priority. And what appears here is the ability to actually add this to the sales order and relate an expense to a sales order created for a certain customer. And the customer name will also appear here. I'm saving it. I'm creating the report and I'm submitting it to my manager that approves it. Let's go back to our sales app. So let me just explore report to approve, post. Validate. So this been here with the sales order. And now that my manager has approved the expenses and has refunded me, the sales order actually appear here with the different line of, so this consulting services and also the expenses made during the trip. And I can now create my invoice and invoice my customer for both my services as agreed and the different expenses done. So here, like, you have a complete flow on the employee side, and then the employer side having to approve the expense, as well as the accountant having to post journal entries and refund the employees. And last step, having to re-invoice the customer is relevant. The expense app also allows you to have an analysis of the different expenses with your consultant and manager with different views, depending on what you prefer. So you have a pivot view. You can see that in June, that was expense, $615 were expensed by the consultant. How much was expensed by the manager? You have also a list view if you want to, as well as a cabin view. So you can really choose whatever is you prefer. If I go back to the list view, I can group by the different employees and have the details underneath and the different products again. So you have really like an idea of like who is spending what at what time and what needs to be done in terms of like approving, posting, or paying the employees.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, all right. I'm going to give people an opportunity to send any last-minute questions that they might have. But in the meantime, I would like to remind everyone that we are currently in the midst of our Odoo 12 tour. You can find all of that information on our website. It is at odoo.com/events. These events are free and great opportunities to network and meet us in person, find out that we are in fact real people. Justine, for instance, have you been to recently?
Yeah, I've done Canada, so Quebec and Montreal, as well as Boston.
Ah, excellent. So, I mean, yeah, always a great opportunity to meet us here, both in this country, in the United States, and around the world. All of that is once again at our website at odoo.com/events. It looks like we don't have any lingering questions, so I think we're probably going to wrap it up here. Thank you, Justine, for your presentation. As always, if you have questions that are not that we couldn't answer today live, you can always send us an email. We are at webinars@odoo.com, and if you would like to get in touch with somebody that you meet directly, we should always recommend that you reach out to your account manager. In this case, Justine. Justine, what is your email address?
So my email is jvi@odoo.com. You can reach me with any questions about this webinar.
Excellent. Well, then, anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next time.
Exactly. All right. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be back tomorrow.